Welcome to today's episode of Blueprints. Today I am with Isabelle, my oldest daughter of 8, and this is super exciting. And today's blueprint topic is going to be so cool to hear from Isabelle because it's really about choosing a career path, early career, figuring out what to do after high school. And so Isabelle, kind of set the stage for us today on how you ended up where you're at as a director of marketing at Custom Built.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, it's super excited to be here with you. It's awesome to be able to do life, business, family, all the things together. And as you mentioned, I'm the oldest of 8. So that's a really big part of my life, I think, and a really big part of who I am today. Really grew up as, second mom to a lot of the kids in the house and helping my mom manage, the household and teach the kids and all that stuff and nurture them along the way. So I've always had a passion for really impacting people on a really personal relationship and personal level. It really starts with my siblings. They're definitely some of my greatest joys in life. The best people to hang out with. So I, have always had a passion for business from a young age. Obviously, growing up with you, being an entrepreneur, I've seen that path and I've seen the joys of it and I've seen the deep challenges, but I've still had a passion for that throughout my life.
Yeah.
So, and I think that really started probably my freshman year of high school.
Okay.
I did a little micro business venture.
Yeah. What was that? That was, tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a fun venture. I learned a lot in the process, but took a little micro business course and created a business plan to have basically a baking camp for girls over a summer.
Yeah.
So it was 5 days. I did girls ages 4 to 7. I think I had about 10 to 13 girls that were in the camp itself. So I did, the research ahead of time. I did all the planning ahead of time to have different baked goods that we'd make every day. And then, of course, like a craft in between and fill up our time from, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., whatever it was. And then do the marketing in advance to actually get girls to sign up and coordinate everything. So that was my first kind of lesson in business. And I think I was telling you this before, and I don't think I made very much at the end of the day when it was all said and done. Yeah. But the experience that I gained through that.
Well, and the impact that you had on those girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
They had the time of their life with you that week, and you still talk to some of them, don't you?
I do. And I've had a couple of them. Somebody came back to me like probably 5 years, 6 years after I did that and was like, hey, that really made a big difference in my daughter's life. And she started baking because of that. And so you're totally right. It's not just about, the bottom line, but I did learn a lot about the bottom line through that experience, but it's really about the impact that you make on people. And so that was my first entrepreneur venture as a young high schooler.
Right. And you graduated in an interesting time, right?
Yeah.
2019. So right before a major world life transition that took place. And I'm thinking today it would be fun to hear a little bit about how that's affected your career path and how COVID played into you making the decisions you did. And I just really want to hear from your heart, because I think for so many listeners out there that are either, trying to figure out what to do as they're finishing up high school, or they're already in a career and they're trying to figure out what do they want to do next. And so I think your story really speaks to that, and love to hear that. So
I was homeschooled for most of my school years. I did go to Williamson High School for a year, really enjoyed that, but ultimately ended up graduating from home. Didn't need very many credits and really wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. So I spent a lot of my senior year actually working. So I worked at Custom Built, I nannied some, and really just got to enjoy my year. But a little bit of my story too is my husband, Luke, and we started dating November. It was middle of my senior year, basically.
Yeah.
And we've known each other for many, many years and really quickly knew like, hey, we're each other's significant other and wanted to make that decision. So that's part of my journey too, because I graduated high school in May and then Luke and I got engaged in June, which was
pretty fast.
Yeah, you could probably tell some stories about that.
Yeah, definitely a good for another podcast for like fathers, how to deal with, giving away your firstborn daughter. That was a big thing. But I had known Luke for a long time and knew that like you guys will be really, he'll be an amazing husband to you and take care of you and all that. And so I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah.
And
And it was your baby girl.
Fast, right? You graduated.
Got engaged.
I
went away
for here's a little tip for fathers. When somebody comes to you and says they want to pursue your daughter and that they're going to take it slow, make sure you ask them what slow means. That was a big mistake, when you're dealing with your kids. You're used to in your professional world of asking more questions, and I kind of went past that. And so slow ended up being fast, in my opinion. So 1 year later, you guys were married.
Exactly. So I have an interesting story with that, because I graduated high school. Again, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was looking in nursing, looked into interior design. I loved baking. I mentioned the baking camp already, but I actually, had a little other side business of doing wedding cakes and wedding cupcakes and everything.
You still do, right?
Well, I've kind of put that on the back burner. I don't market that anymore.
Sold that business.
Yeah, for somebody who, really, really wants me to, I would consider it.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time and energy, and I'm putting that into other areas at this point. So, then we got engaged. I went off to an internship down in Kansas City that was through a church program, and so I took 6 months, pretty much while the whole time that Luke and I were engaged, to go be at this internship and just pursue a time of learning more about myself, my faith. And just take some time away. I went and moved again down to Kansas City, so away from family, and just kind of my first thing out.
I think that internship and that concept of getting away, you had to be off your phone for much of the time, and you had to spend a lot of time journaling and really getting to know yourself. It was really it's a challenging internship that you did down there, and had a big impact on some of the decisions you made, I think, as well. So.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And it was also a really incredible community down there. I've met some of my best friends through that internship to this day still. So I definitely learned a lot in that time. Came back in December. Luke and I got married in January of 2020, right before COVID. And then we moved down to Purdue University for him to finish up his education. And then COVID happened.
Was he a senior year?
He was
a junior year.
Okay. Yeah, it was halfway through his junior year.
Okay.
So.
All right. So then January 4th, you guys get married, and then March, COVID hits.
Yeah.
And
COVID hits. We were down in Florida at the time on spring break, and COVID hit, and we were like, what's going to happen? We came back to Purdue, and everything was online. So we decided, hey, why would we be down here in Indiana when we could be up near family and, enjoy this time. I at the time was nannying again, so really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was hardcore looking into pursuing nursing. That was really my focus, but then I always came back to interior design. I love to be creative, so marketing was also on my mind too, but I was like, how do I even really get into that field? So we moved back, and then I said, hey, can I take a summer job at Custom Built? I want to answer the phones, client service. And so I started that for the summer, and really just intended that to be a full-time job for the summer as Luke and I were transitioning, having some time, for him to be remote. But then also we wanted to get back to Purdue. But then everything continued to stay online. So we were up in Michigan.
So I think everybody can remember, not everybody, but especially those that were, that time period, it just kept going and going and going, and everything was unknown. I mean, the anxiety, the mental health was really difficult, because people that like to have control and understand everything, you couldn't at that time. I mean, it was just, everything kept getting delayed. So you guys stuck around longer than what you thought.
Yeah, we did.
And I know from, so you made the comment, like, how do I get into marketing? And so I think sometimes in life, wouldn't you say, like, you just take the next step?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I didn't know what my next step was going to be, but I decided I'm not just going to sit around for the summer and try to figure out what my next step is.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn something or impact somebody in the process.
Yeah.
And for me, obviously having the connection to Custom Built, I've worked there over the summers and, throughout my life. And so it was a natural transition for me to be like, hey, this is going to be my summer job, and let me see where this goes. But I really went into it with the intention of it was just a summer job, which looking back on that, would challenge people to be like, look at every opportunity with, how can I get the most out of this?
Yeah.
And my mindset did shift pretty quickly once I started working at Custom Built. I was like, wow, there's so many opportunities here. I started learning a software called HubSpot, which we utilized as our CRM. started taking, courses through there, certifications, watching videos. And then that's really when my mind began to expand with there's so much opportunity for us as a business utilizing this tool.
Well, HubSpot is a major marketing tool, right? Like in a major organization in the area of CRMs and marketing.
Yeah, they're definitely a thought leader in the space of all things content creation, marketing. They lead the world in a lot of areas.
So I just had this thought, like you're coming to work for your dad's business for the summertime because there's, because you want to help, you want to do something, but you're still, you and Luke are newly married. You have all your firsts that are happening, and he's still finishing college, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But you took that opportunity. You didn't treat that just like a job. You treated it more than that. You're like, what can I do to you? So you captured the vision of what we were trying to do with HubSpot, because we had HubSpot as a tool for 4 years, and honestly, we used not even 0.5% of what it could do for us at that point. And I had grown very frustrated, because we had worked with several companies to help us implement HubSpot into our company and to start creating blogs and writing, creating videos and things like that. And so you really jumped in and spent your time learning, like not just at work, but you were thinking about it after work. You were doing a lot of research to grow your skill set.
Yeah. And I had heard you talk about the investment that you made into HubSpot. So coming in, I kind of already knew that was a pain point in the business. Like we're investing, HubSpot's not a cheap software to invest in.
Right.
Because it really is robust in so many areas and can save you time and money in a lot of spaces. But we, again, were utilizing, I would say, about 2% of what we could have utilized at that point.
Right.
So, yeah, I came in, and I think just my natural drive is that I want to succeed in life. And so I really do take a lot of my opportunities that I've been given and go at them with, like, this is something I'm owning.
Mm-hmm. So you created your future. I mean, in a lot of ways, you created your pathway to being now today the director of marketing at Custom Built, a company that's got 40 people in it, and doing a lot of business in the residential design and remodeling market.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that started that summer. You did all this work, and then let's see.
Yeah. So then in the fall, we were again planning to go back to Purdue. His school stayed online, and I said, hey, I want to stay up here. Like, I've got this opportunity at Custom Built. I'm really loving what I'm doing, and I want to continue on this path. And so I think I came on maybe as like a sales assistant. I don't remember what the title was. I've had a couple of titles in my career here. But yeah, came on full time. Again, my biggest thing in my role was owning HubSpot.
Yeah.
So really making sure we were utilizing the software and then working with our sales team to make sure that the client experience all happened within HubSpot, all of our metrics, reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of exploded from there. I worked with some of our advisors to design projects. Again, I had a natural passion for that, a natural eye. And
so you learned Chief Architect, which is our design software.
Yep.
Again, all of this stuff is like, if you have the drive for it and the capacity and the love for it, you can learn something fast. Is one of the things that I think as an entrepreneur, and at Custom Built, we refer to them kind of as entrepreneurs.
Yes.
People in the company that are like, hey, I really want to have a piece of the ownership of this, and they invest their time and really hone their skills so they can move up in the company and grow.
Absolutely. Whenever anyone asks me like, hey, what's your advice for career advancement? It's like, learn everything that you can in your role to take ownership of those items. Like if you become in your role the owner of whatever it is you're doing in the company, and people come to you for questions and answers, people are looking to you for advice, like continue to do what you're doing if that's the result. Because again, if you're taking advantage, like we all have, a position outline agreement or a job description, but your job is so much more than what's just on paper. It's actually how you show up every day, your mindset, right? Like what you really, it's like you got a blank paper in front of you that says, hey, here's what you need to do, but how you do it is so important.
Right.
So that's what I've learned along the years. And yeah, kind of fast forward, like took over marketing
2022.
So a couple years in, and that's been a whole journey.
Yep. We hired Impact, which Marcus Sheridan has written the book of Endless Customers.
Yes.
And that was a big milestone. Not only were you promoted into this new role that maybe you didn't feel like you knew everything, right? Did you
Right.
feel like you had everything figured out? It was a lot of learning as we're growing.
Right.
And honestly, I think sometimes as business owners, we look at our businesses and we're afraid that we're failing or things aren't working well. And, I've heard it said that the top 5 companies in the world, including, some of the big name Google and SpaceX and all these things, and behind the scenes, there's always messes and there's people that are growing and there's more growth than like there's capacity. There's not SOPs in place. There's not all these things. And you've constantly risen to the occasion of growing as a person, right?
Right.
And I think core value match, one of our core values is grow or die, and you really embody that thing. So that's been super fun. I remember one day, just a quick story, shortly after Isabelle started working for the company, and somebody came into the office and she introduced herself as
client service advisor at the time.
Yeah, or something like that. But then she said, and this is Michael, she said, and she was referring to me, and I'm like, hey, I'm your dad. But that, again, a mentality of like, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to be part of this company, and I'm not successful because this is my dad's business. And she's always taken that very professional position, which I think has empowered you because you see yourself as a leader in the company versus seeing yourself as my daughter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's just a difference there. You are my daughter.
Yes.
But you also are a leader in the organization, and you wanted people to feel that. Now, this is a male-dominated industry on top of that, right?
It is.
So there's some of that you have to overcome as well,
Absolutely. I mean, especially when we're working with our trade partners and managing projects and things like that. So, communication and being direct and concise in the construction industry is so important.
Yeah.
And honestly, as a leader, communication is one of the things that you can always strive for growing in. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. How have you grown in some of that? I mean, you've read a lot of books.
I have.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of books. I love to listen to podcasts. That's a way that I just auditorily learn.
Yeah.
I also would say coaches. That's the other big thing for me is I've had some incredible coaches along the way.
Yeah.
People to tell me not only what I can get better at, but how to continue to pursue knowledge and growth.
Right. I heard the definition recently of the difference between education and schooling, and you've really embodied that thing. You don't have a higher degree, a degree,
right?
But you have taken the knowledge that you've taken. You can get it from anywhere, right? With the information now with AI, like you can get information faster than anything. But the value of that information turned into something that makes something value in the marketplace, that's the difference between schooling and education. I mean, schooling, you can go to school forever and not be able to offer something to the marketplace, but you've been able to take all the education and turn that into something really positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, it's like continue to pursue growing. One of my coaches has told me, your business is not going to go farther than you go.
Right.
So if you're not continuing to pour into yourself personally to grow as a person in your relationships, all relationships in your life, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be able to take your business relationships further than you're willing to go in your personal life.
Yeah,
I like
awesome.
to say, work-life integration, not work-life balance.
Yeah.
And it's really bringing the two together, finding your passion and pursuing that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Yeah. For those out there that are thinking about next career steps, you would be a great resource for young people that are trying to figure out next steps, whether they should go on to get a degree, because degrees are still necessary. But this blueprint of your life that is unfolding before us is just such an amazing story of how you can go and make a big impact in the marketplace without having to do a full 4-year degree. And
Correct.
You're leading people because you're willing to go out and change and grow yourself. So glad to have you today. And
thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Amazing to be together.